All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on behalf of ACSA, AIAS, and NOMA and NOMAS. We're really happy that y'all were able to join us for this discussion. And I'm sure people will start jumping on here as well. So we'll just go ahead and get started. The way today's going to work, we're going to have a couple people say a few different things. And then at the second half of the conversation is going to be a question and answer. And so we've picked out a couple people here that are students who represent us at the national level, in addition to myself at the AIS, two of our quad directors who are also current students. And then we're also joined by Ricardo Ramos, who is one of the student reps on the national NOMA board. So yeah, thank you all for coming, and thank you to everyone else for being here as well. We also have two educators who will be specifically talking with us later today. Andrew Chin from FAMU. Yeah, it's in Florida. I don't remember what the whole acronym stands for. Sorry, Andrew.
Florida
We're like
A&M.
We're like California and Texas.
Yeah.
Lots of
And then José Gámez from UNCC, which is in North Carolina, Charlotte. The only reason I remember that one is because I visited his school last semester. So anyway, yeah, we all know that right now things are incredibly difficult for both faculty and students. This situation is completely unprecedented, and everyone's had to face a lot of difficult transitions over the last month. I mean, it's been a crazy hour by hour update, it seems. But hopefully everyone is staying safe, staying healthy. From all of us at the AIS, we hope that you're doing, everything that you can to get through school, especially as finals rolls around. And I know also that the ACSA is really looking at providing a lot of support for everyone as well, hence why they're hosting these webinars and discussions. So thank you for those of you that were able to join us tonight. So with that, I'll go ahead and open the floor to Kyra, Noor, and Ricardo to just say a few words about what they've been hearing from the people that they're representing and also their personal experiences. Whoever wants to go first.
Let's see, I guess I'll go first since I'm first to speak up. Let's see, I think definitely experiences vary between different students as well as different universities and how well they're willing to adapt. What we've seen with the students, I guess, and with how they've been adapted to some of the studio culture is they've been kind of switching from some of the in-person experiences to using different online platforms, whether it's organizations and they decide to use like Zoom for different, to still offer some of the same services to students, or whether they use Discord servers. See that they're still making attempts to stay connected and communicate during these times, especially because it seems like they really need it as well. It's hard for me to say exactly like how each student is affected because it varies so much across it's case by case. But I think definitely see a lot of students trying to leverage what resources they have to still kind of support each other.
Cool, thanks, Ricardo.
Yeah, to go off of that, we've kind of, Kyra said earlier that it's all students are sort of at different stages, and that's kind of what we're hearing and talking to students. We've been kind of doing stages of grief because everyone's in a different place. I know some students were sort of uprooted in the sense that their schools decided to close during spring break and they weren't able to return to studios or to their school to be able to get their stuff. So they're missing their belongings. And we haven't heard very much from international students, but I'm imagining that they might be going through a really tough time too because they had to return back home because they weren't able to stay in their dormitory housing. In terms of where we're at, so I'm at City College and things are kind of going okay. Different students are having different experiences with online learning just because different professors are going to be approaching it differently. And some professors are, of course, more teched in than others. They know how to use technology at different levels. For the most part, everyone's just sort of doing the best they can in this situation, but it is, of course, not the same in terms of the education you would be getting while you're in studio, especially with group projects. There are different sorts of, I mean, with technology, it is, you know, you can do group work, but it's not the same as in-person interactions. And then also students are just all in such different places where you don't really know what's going on. Like asking someone, like some students, like they'll be really, really present and then maybe check out in a week, and then professors are hearing that, you know, maybe they've lost a family member. And especially as some cities are kind of at different stages of their crisis, there's so much uncertainty, and as we progress, it seems that there's even less and less to kind of hold on to as the situation just sort of progresses, and students are also just facing so much uncertainty in terms of what the job market is going to look like in a month or two, and a lot of graduating students have had their job offers pulled. So everyone's just at different stages.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Kyra. I'm at Auburn University doing the Rural Studio Design Build program. So pre-COVID-19, we were meeting in studio 8 hours a week, meeting as a team. So once everything hit, the projects actually all got canceled. 4 of them under construction, 3 that were going to begin construction in the next month. So things have very much changed for us. The education that we wanted was design build. And so it's like, how do you do design build when you can't be on site? So instead of building a project, we're writing a book about it. So we're just meeting with our professor twice a week. I guess the good part is that it is teaching us to be independent as a team. Since we are only meeting with the professor twice a week, we're learning to rely on each other a lot more. And then the studio is also looking at like stay relevant when your whole mission is to build. So our team, the Hale County Hospital Courtyard, in the next month will be coming out with the first rural studio podcast ever. So there are like things coming about. It just did not start off that way.
So I'm Kati. I'm a third-year student from UNC Charlotte. And some of the people that I've talked to, and I'll just sort of touch on something that probably hasn't been said before, is we have been getting those policies from just the university in general that allow us to have some pass or no credit kind of options at the end of the semesters. There's still, or there was a lot of confusion with, you know, like if we were going to be able to do it for every class or just for a few, if we get to choose, or if it depended on the professor as well. Some things have been cleared out for sure. So that's being worked out. But I think, I mean, for some people, it is a relief that, you know, they can probably have a no credit for a class, because it's really hard to just not work if you don't have the resources to do it. In terms of just professionally or work-wise and the economics of it, I know there's a lot of people who were in our career expo and who were expecting, you know, to get a lot of answers back. I think, I mean, this year was very successful, even though it was a little bit switched because of some snow that we got, like an inch probably. But I think I've heard from many people that not many are getting any answers back. At first, like before we moved to the online world, they were hesitant to start sending emails because they were probably thinking it was too soon. But now with this whole situation, and a lot of people are graduating, so they don't know if they should push for something or if just the companies are not hiring anymore. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Kati. So you guys can tell that this is totally unscripted. Everyone has had kind of their own opinion. In fact, another thing to add to the unscriptedness, I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Fogel. I'm the current vice president for the American Institute of Architecture students. part of my position as well, with being vice president, is I get to serve on the ACSA's board of directors as their student director. Hence why I'm monitoring this tonight. So yeah, thank you all again. My apologies for being so informal. What am I going to do with myself? Anyway, so a couple other things in addition to what we're hearing from students. The AIAS has taken that and started to formulate a lot of resources for students to kind of just get a general sense of how other people are feeling, what else is going on. We've created a whole resources page on our website, which has a lot of articles and tips and tricks, which is just us gathering data, gathering content. We haven't been able to, or excuse me, rather that, we're also writing a lot of content as well. And so we're working on a vibe check survey right now just to kind of gather data with students and have a better understanding of where we're moving next. Also on that same note, ACSA has also developed their own resources page. And both of the pages are kind of linked together, so it's pretty cool. There's a lot of resources out there. And I know AIA and NCARB have also been working really hard to make sure people aren't left behind during this difficult time. So up next, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Andrew Chin. And Andrew and Jose are both going to be sharing some slides with us today because they've actually started to gather data as well and have some results to show us.
Sure, thanks, Adam. As Adam indicated, I'm an associate dean at Florida A&M University School of Architecture, Engineering, Technology, and Adam, it's pronounced FAMU, so I'll have to get you a T-shirt or something. Like most schools, you know, design studios, the center of the world. And everyone said it couldn't be done online, but you know, we all had to. But unlike many other schools, FAMU was a historically Black college, one of the 6 HBCUs that have accredited architecture programs, and one of the many minority serving institutions. But in spite of those differences, we were all in the same boat. Come spring break, when we told the students, guess what, when you come back, don't come back. Things are gonna be different. And we started to talk to them about how we're going to make this shift or this change. Can you see some charts on the screen? Okay, great. My assumption right away was that, you know, this is not a short-term thing. This may be spring, this may be summer, and this also may be fall. So I quickly put out a survey. Our survey went out the week after spring break. So as soon as everyone came back, we kind of want to know who's here and how do you feel? And we got a pretty good snapshot. 80 students, which is half of our program, responded. And it was a pretty good distribution of first-year students to graduate students and really mimicked the school. And also, we also did a survey of faculty. So we asked students questions, then we asked faculty questions. And that led to some pretty interesting findings at the end. Our school is predominantly architecture faculty, but we have faculty from another program. And the first question, of course, was, are you ready? And asking the students, you know, do you have the hardware software needs that prohibit you from completing your classes? They knew after spring break that change was coming, and we asked the students, but we also asked the faculty, because if the students aren't ready, if the faculty aren't ready, it's going to be a bigger mess. So we asked both groups, both gave pretty much the same answer, you know, whether it's 71% or 85%, most were ready. Only 25% of the students, and we reacted quickly. The university provided laptops, and our school provided software. So if you didn't have Rhino or you didn't have Adobe Suite, you sent an email at the end of the survey and we responded. We also even mailed laptops to students that were out of town. So the university responded quickly because we knew with the population we served, there may be resource issues. The survey kind of wanted a snapshot, you know, do we have the whole students, all the faculty, are they in the same boat? And we started to ask questions knowing that they're no longer going to communicate face-to-face. So ask the students, how do you communicate with faculty? Ask the faculty, how do you communicate with faculty? And it was pretty much as expected. Everyone wants to talk via email to faculty. That was expected. But when we asked the students and faculty, how do you communicate to students? And how do faculty communicate to students? You start to see the rift. Faculty still want to talk via email. And it starts to show students only talk to faculty because that's what faculty want, okay? Students talk to each other in different ways. They use GroupMe, they use text, you know, face-to-face wasn't an option here. And we wanted to know, okay, if you guys are talking in very different languages, in very different code, you're code switching when you go into the faculty conversation, are you guys even really saying the same thing? What's hidden what's missing because you're talking two different languages to each other, or two different mediums, or let's say, you know, heavy New York accent versus a Southern accent. Two different things are going on here. So we wanted to find out where are the gaps. And it started the show when we asked students and everyone, how do you feel? Well, guess what? The students are scared. You know, 75% of the students are either nervous or very nervous, okay? That's the opposite of faculty. Faculty are excited or very excited. It's like, what the heck's going on? Why are you're excited? Well, because you're gonna get paid no matter what happens. Your class is bad, you still have your job. The students are scared, okay? Students are scared, faculty are excited. And I was like, well, faculty are excited, students are scared, but wait a minute. Both of you said you had the resources you needed. You know, most students said they had what they needed. Faculty said they had what they needed. Faculty are excited, students are scared. It made me think of almost people getting on a roller coaster. You know, the faculty are the ones that get on the roller coaster in line and they're excited. They're gonna come off the roller coaster happy, smiling. The students are the ones that are scared. They come off the roller coaster crying, okay? So on one hand, I mean, my big concern right now is this kind of gap of experience between students and faculty right now. That we have some people that are excited, they see the change coming in the discipline. Okay, we're gonna get contemporary, I get to work from home, great, I can take care of my kids. And the others are we're all on the same roller coaster ride, but we're gonna come out of this and we feel very differently. And I thought that even our student versus faculty shift also reflects many of the students in our country. The kids in Miami, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, and New Orleans probably feel very different than the students that are in the middle of nowhere, like FAMU, okay? Your experience, your family members, their experiences, your financial situation in your family are very different. And one of my biggest concerns is, are faculty really aware that they are on a very different ride than the students? That faculty are on this roller coaster and they're gonna get off of it and go, that was incredible, it was a great learning experience, here comes my conference paper. And students are really the ones that are dealing with the ride.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Yeah, that was amazing. Really, really insightful data. And I know a lot of people are feeling the same way, judging on all the +1s in the comments. So, all right, up next, Jose.
Thank you. And I'm sorry to say that my feet are not big enough to fill the shoes that Andrew has just left in front of me. That was fantastic. And I'm really excited to hear the kind of level of detail you've gotten to at FAMU. We haven't quite gotten to that level yet in Charlotte, but I think the slides that I'll share will be a nice complement to what Andrew has shown. We've collected a lot of comments, and maybe as I wrap up after about 3 or 4 slides, maybe Kati, maybe Claire, both from UNC Charlotte NOMA, if y'all could chime in as well, that would be great, just to hear from your perspective, because I think we have some similar characteristics in our overall student body. UNC Charlotte is predominantly first-generation college kids at UNCC, 55% at the campus as a whole. Architecture is a little different, but we are historically a community serving campus, and we have an ethos and a mission at the campus level and at the school level that still tries to make sure that quite a bit of what we do responds to that kind of public outreach and public scholarship model. But and that's part of the reason why we were quick to try to survey our students. About a quarter of our students responded. So we didn't quite yet at this point have the same, can you all see that? We didn't have the same demographic results that FAMU has gotten. But we're still working on it, and we're beginning to survey faculty now around resources they need to do their job well, assuming we may have to do this again in the future, right? This is now the new normal. COVID-19 is not going away. If we're lucky in the very short term, we'll get a vaccine and we'll get inoculated annually, just like we do the flu. But this is probably a situation where while we're working in emergency mode right now, having a backup plan to go remote in future semesters seems really likely. That's just going to be the new normal, right? So we're beginning to ask our faculty now, looking back on the few weeks that we have, what's going well, where are the gaps, what's still missing, what are the tools, what are the technologies, what are the support systems that we need to be able to make students successful, or put in place to have students be successful. The other point that, to echo what Andrew was saying, is we've already gone full semester for the summer session 1 and 2 online. Our campus, our UNC system is still considering what will happen for fall. We're optimistic, but we're not naive. And I'm pretty, as you all probably know, Boston University in Boston, Massachusetts, has already talked about a start date of January 21 for campus activities. We will likely, we're in a College of Arts and Architecture. We're pretty sure that there will be no major performances, no large gatherings, no lecture series in the fall until we've got a handle on COVID-19 and whatever its repercussions might be. We're looking at it for vaccines, probably what, a 16, 18-month window. So it will not be back to normal. We're not even sure what studio will look like if we have to maintain some kind of social distancing practice. And you all know what studio looks like, right? We sit on top of each other. Traditional studio is going to be difficult to fathom in the near future. So we surveyed our students to see how this transition has happened. We got about 60 students, maybe a little over a quarter of our students responding at this point. In ranked order there, loss of motivation, due largely to stress and anxiety. Maybe not surprisingly, but the loss of community that studio represented, the ability to turn to your colleague and share an idea or share a frustration or borrow a tool or go get coffee, right? We sometimes forget how much of a community we build with our school. We tell that to our students every year, our incoming freshmen. And then after freshman year, you kind of take it for granted until it's taken away from you. And that support network of just having someone around in studio has really begun to take a toll on folks. Communication is a challenge, as Andrew's pointing out. You know, email is a preferred model for us dinosaurs. All you young bucks are on every other platform in the world, and I thought TikTok was candy. So you know, we're not keeping pace with digital natives' sophistication in the digital world. And that is complicating things. On top of that, many faculty are using multiple platforms. So if a student has 5 classes, they may have 5 very different platforms just to communicate with their schoolwork. And that's compounding a lot of the communication problems. That adds to questions about technology, particularly questions about access to the internet. My internet, I'm sure, as many of your own, has gone down a couple of times since we've been off campus, and I've had to just go missing until I can log back in and tell people, you know, I was out because of an internet confusion and now I'm back, let me know what you need. And then we've got the fact that a lot of folks weren't prepared to create a studio environment wherever they are now, right? Lack of space to do the kind of work we like to do, even if it's now all digital, there's still often a need to sketch something by hand, or maybe our habit is to mock something up by hand and then translate that idea back into the computer. We don't quite often have the spaces to do that. And again, that builds into that question of where our community lies, both socially and physically. A couple of quotes, not all of it was terrible. I would say the majority of our comments so far have not been positive. People are voicing their frustration, they're voicing their challenges, but they were pointing out some of the advantages. In one case, for one particular person, not difficult at all, and all our faculty are awesome. That's fantastic. Andrew's laughing down there because he knows that can't possibly be true. But some of our faculty are a little more adept at moving online than most of our faculty, right? And this is a moment where the generational shifts between folks who were educated in a digital environment, who might be closer in age to some of our students, certainly some of our graduate students, have a facility with technology that folks like myself don't. I kind of know how to use Zoom. I know how to use SketchUp, but I can't do 90% of the things that most of our students can do in their freshman year, right? And that is posing a bit of a challenge, and I think that contributes to the communication challenges that we have. Another student who's actually was struggling on campus precisely because they'd been away from home maybe for the first time, and being back home in an era where things are scary, being home with family was something that calmed nerves, right? And that's interesting, right? Because this is a situation that we're all weathering very differently, and our circumstances are all quite different. In some cases, one of our graduate students lives with a healthcare provider. He lives with a nurse who's coming home to a guy who's trying to work on a laptop in a studio apartment, and they're trying to practice social distancing to keep themselves healthy so that one person can go to work and one person can go to studio, so to speak. And it's becoming a challenge just to live daily life. Some of our students taking care of family. Now that they're home, they might be the only healthy person who can go to the grocery store. And so on top of the demands of having to manage the school workload, possibly manage a part-time job, now they're also managing some of the life needs of people for whom they have responsibility. In one case, someone lost a job and they've had to move out of their apartment. I mean, so obviously all of these kinds of things contribute to the kinds of stress that Andrew's students were potentially alluding to, maybe giving some words to the kind of data. Kati, Claire, I don't know, I'm sure you both participated in our survey, but I don't know if these comments that I've shared reflect your own experiences. I'd love to hear, I'm sure the group would love to hear from you, from NOMAS's perspective, from your own personal perspective as a student in one, international on top of that, right?
Yeah, I think just one more thing that I wanted to point out is that, I mean, just even with the relationship with the professors, it's also been sort of on every side of the spectrum. I have heard some comments of some classes that have basically been canceled. I mean, of course, not officially because the campus is still holding classes online, but I know some professors just decided to say, this is the last class, just send me what you have until today, and this will be it. And then there's also some other classes in which the people are actually having a bit more work to do because, for example, if you're having like a lecture-based sort of class, you just have to do readings and then discussion in class. Now you're having to also write about it. So that may take some extra time that you're probably not thinking about. So it's just sort of all over the place. And I've heard people that also have sort of both of those situations in one person. So it's just hard to say, everybody's experiencing this because we're such a diverse college as well.
Claire, you want to add anything to that? By the way, I'm picking on my UNCC friends, so who I haven't seen in a little while. Great to see you both.
My situation is a little bit different than everyone else's. I was studying abroad in Rome, so I have been at home since March 6th. We've been canceled school since February 22nd, and the hardest part for me, and I know for a lot of my peers who were in Rome with me, was that we didn't have class from February 22nd to March 20th. So it was a month without class, and now it's this weird transition where you can't really, there's no space for you to do anything. You weren't planning on being here, but then on top of that, you're basically going from nothing to stressed out to getting a plane ticket to, okay, it's finals time. You have to crunch, you have to do everything. And it seems very out of place. And I feel like my time could be better spent helping people, helping frontline workers than working on a studio project. It just kind of feels, not to be crass, but it feels a little bit useless. I don't know.
Adam, I mean, we had several responses in our overall survey who said things to similar effect, right? That some of the studio work seemed pointless given the challenge in front of us, and that some of the real world challenges that people were facing seemed to take priority, and it helped people put things in perspective. And sometimes school was not at the top of that list for a lot of reasons, a lot of legitimate reasons, right? So maybe I'll just hand it back.
Yeah, Jose or Adam. Yeah, I think that the real stressor is that in a normal semester, all the students know who they can go to for peace. You know, in a normal semester, you have the structure of your classes, whether that professor is the best or the worst. Class starts at a certain time, ends at a time. There's a pattern and regularity that you know is there, and there's a structure. And when things are brittle, you know who is the secretary, who is the staff person, who's the professor, that you can kind of go in their office and just vent. You know, you can just kind of say, I'm tired of this, and they nod their head and they repeat what you say as they're trained to do, and you kind of feel better after you leave their space. The tough part now is all the students are in an unknown with different stressors pressing on them. And guess what? The faculty are in this unknown. They don't know they got their kids, they're trying to homeschool their kids while they're trying to homeschool or school home, one way or the other, studio. They don't know. And then faculty aren't the ones you can lean on, because they're the ones that have brothers, sisters, old people like them that are the ones that are the most brittle and on this front line. Their kids are the ones in our situation. We got someone, his kid is at the hospital and people are at the hospitals. So it's tough because you almost have the weak trying to lean on the weak. But it's almost like I keep saying, look, we're just going to get through it, and semester comes to an end, and then we'll see what the next step is. But keep pushing forward, because yeah, it's again, we're in the same boat, and some of us are doggy paddling, and some of us are holding onto the door. You know, some of us got the door like at the end of that movie, and some of us don't got nothing. We're just swimming with sharks. So hang in there.
Yeah, that one movie.
Yeah.
No, thank you both for sharing the data that you've collected. So just doing a quick time check here. We've got about an hour left, and I know there are a lot of people on this call. And so just a few quick things. People are throwing questions in the chat already, but if you have a question that comes into mind, drop it in the chat, and I'll go ahead and add it to my already predetermined list. We're definitely making this an open discussion, so people will have the opportunity to ask questions and speak up. On that second note, if you would like to say something, because there are so many people, I'm going to ask that we use Zoom's raise hand feature. It's not like actually raising your hand. If you go to the participants button, you can see that there's a little button that says raise hand. And then if you'll notice, there's a little blue hand that pops up, right? So that's how that'll assist me to call on people and moderate. That way we don't have people talking over each other as we go through this. So as soon as you are called upon, I just ask that you put your hand down. That way I don't get mixed up, because I can guarantee you that I will. So Jose, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just looking at one of the questions that got raised by someone in Minnesota, I believe it was, who was asking a little bit about a problematic view, rightfully so, that maybe faculty might feel less stressed because they've got a job that they can count on. I can tell you that tenure track faculty certainly are always stressed, and this is a moment where their trajectory towards tenure and towards a permanent job is up in question. University of Arizona just this afternoon posted some news. They're furloughing virtually everybody. Administrators are taking about a 20% pay cut, all the way down to people who are essentially at either tenure track starter, assistant professor pay, or adjunct pay, being furloughed, which means they're getting uninvited vacation days for which they're not going to be paid. So, which translates to a 5, 10, or a 15% pay cut, depending on where they stand in the salary range. So it's not by no means a foregone conclusion, particularly at state institutions and at small privates, that we're all secure. I mean, people are really worried about the next 18 months for a lot of reasons, because a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, a lot of the hints and indications from folks like yourselves who a few years back were thinking about going to college, staying close to home seems better than going far away. Paying lots of money to a brand name school when they might be online doesn't seem to make economic sense. Someone raised the question about bang for buck. So there are some real impacts that will resonate throughout higher ed. We're projecting at Charlotte probably some drop in enrollment, people taking gap years, for example. My daughter is one of those people who's considering that now, not for Charlotte, but for some other schools. She won't go to Charlotte because I teach here. So, you know, that tells you something about siblings and families. But what that translates to is fewer dollars for each campus, fewer events. Who knows if we can even have a lecture series anyway. There are some concerns about what the budgets will look like at state institutions in particular. You know, given the last 10 or so years of national tax cuts, that translates to fewer dollars going to your state institutions. This is going to be one more thing that erodes that stability. So there are faculty who are quite nervous, like students are, about the security that they face. It's a little different, obviously, but it's an uncertain future for all of us in many ways.
Yeah, definitely. So let's see. So let me check through some things here. Yeah, thank you everyone for using the chat and the raised hand. I saw that I'm still gonna mispronounce your name, and I apologize. Andre.
It's Andre.
Andre. Yep. There you go.
I think I was kind of intrigued by the discussion from Andrew and maybe others, because in many ways I actually very quickly contacted my students, and Ricardo, correct me, because Ricardo is my studio right now. So we do meet whole studio time. So I have every day, every studio time we meet for half an hour, 40 minutes as a group, and then 15 to 20 minutes with each student. And it's basically sign-up sheets. Everybody has a sign-up sheet, and if I'm running with somebody else slightly too late, I tell my students, come in, kick the person in front of you who is really taking more time to you, and we go, you know, table to end to the end, begin to the end. And I have also seminar with the same group because it's an integrated studio. So Monday we start slightly late, instead of 8:30, 9 o'clock, but we run through 6 continuously. And not with all as a whole group, but with every student. So we generally meet twice a week, and we have whole group meeting, and then we have at least 15 minutes, sometimes 20. There's always a couple more time slots. So if somebody needs to talk more, they can sign up, but have to sign up at the end of the day, because otherwise everybody will sign up at the end of the day. I need to meet people in the morning too, as Ricardo knows. So I think it's for me, I think it's our role to, first of all, initiate conversation very quickly. And also, as Ricardo can speak, I want him to talk a bit more, because he tells me more about the school and how it works. When you start conversation, those 15, 20 minutes, first question is, are you okay? What limits your productivity? And you basically are interface for the administration for the rest of the school, because you actually know your students most, and you know if their productivity changed. And what is nice about the situation right now, that we didn't start semester this way, we moved. So I knew students for 5-6 weeks. So I have a sense of, are they now changed very drastically, or they continue the same way of producing and so on. So actually gave me some sort of balancing, or some kind of a reference point, so I can actually, when we talk, I get a sense of how they are. But I think the key is they have to have proactive, the same schedule as we had before, because this kind of normalcy, the only maybe normalcy they have in life. And we do have students in situations. I can't talk more because I have my student in my class, but in here, and it's publicly recorded, but we have situations. And honestly, it's not necessarily people who have problems in the family are underperforming significantly less. There's an impact, but there's actually very interesting mapping in this sense. But I think we as a faculty need to keep the track on them. We have to be interface for the university administration, because we know the students, and they would often tell us more about things in life than actually go in email. I have to tell them to all email, students, or email somebody, because it's worth letting people know. And I think it's we should maintain, even though we have our own things to do at home at the same time, but this is our commitment and we have to deliver in this sense. So it's kind of my couple of points, but maybe Ricardo, can you reflect how, because I know you did survey our students from our university point of view. Do you want to kind of give some kind of reflections on this? Because you look at many different studios and compare them too, without being personal.
Right. Bringing a good point. So as you mentioned, Andrew is my studio professor. For most part, everything he said I think is pretty true. He's done a pretty good job with our studio, I guess, in adjusting and kind of seeing where we were at. And also too, I know on a personal basis, like when I have my talk with him, like my desk crit or my computer crit, it's not really a desk crit anymore, I guess. He asks these conversations. So he's aware and open-minded. And I see some of the comments here talking about how do we spread that around, or how do we make that a bigger point to do for other classes. I do have other classes where some of my teachers aren't as open-minded, or we'll have meetings where like they require us to show our face, but may not really realize we have conditions happening in our backgrounds that we may not want other people to see. So I think a lot of that has to come from us kind of promoting some of the culture of get to understand that the student experience and the professor experience are different. Everyone has different experiences. Whether it be through an anonymous survey or whether you have the one-on-one conversations with your professor. These are cultures and practices, especially for now, that we need to encourage in order for us to continue through. Definitely the semester is going to be more so about adjusting and surviving and doing what we can. And then for whatever happens in the fall, we'll have to be a lot more strategic in what the expectations are going to be. A lot of this has to be about balancing and rechecking. And that's something that has to be promoted, I think, on a school level for all professors. Definitely help the professors see that students are going through a lot more than what they may realize, and to be cautious, be able to kind of balance what their syllabus said in the beginning versus what may be required now, or what some of the expectations are.
Cool, thank you guys. Yeah, from what I'm seeing in the chat and what I'm hearing from everyone who's spoken so far, this sounds like something that we face a lot every day. It's just a shift, right? It's our learning and teaching culture, or our studio culture. How are we thinking about it in terms of a digital sense? And I have noticed that I have my entire AIS board of directors on here. So hi everyone, thanks for coming. So I can actually go ahead and let Noor give her point, and maybe she can add some stuff on studio culture as well. Noor, you're muted.
I raised my hand earlier when Jose was speaking, so the topic's a little bit different. It's just on gap years. I'm a little concerned that with summer, for most schools at this point being online, and then fall, a lot of schools, I know my school is thinking about being online, and a lot of other schools are too. And then if students, decide to take like a semester or two off, and I know a lot of students like myself, we work in order to be able to pay our tuition. Like if I don't work in the summer, then I might not be able to pay for another semester of school. So in that case, I'm worried that students won't go back to architecture school. That already happens, like, regardless of a pandemic, students face a lot of hurdles, especially in architecture education. And I'm concerned that if students don't feel supported, or if resources aren't made available to them, that we might start losing students, especially like second or third years who maybe decide to leave halfway through the program. But yeah, sorry if that's off topic.
No, not at all. That's super insightful. And that's a great point. And I think that goes to a good question that I saw in the chat about, what have your schools been doing to help you mitigate some of this stuff, right? Like whether it's getting a job and paying for school and that sort of thing, or things like mental health and wellness, any sort of support there. I mean, I'm super excited to hear that some of our faculty on this call are trying to keep things business as usual, but I've heard some horror stories as well, where some professors are just completely disregarding any sort of schedule, and because it's online, they think they can talk for however long they want. So yeah, that's really interesting, Noor. And I see that Nadia, you have something to share with us. You're also muted.
You'd think I'd be used to this by now. No, and I thank you. I've been chatting with some people too. I think one of the things I wanted to mention and I don't really know what the best way is to convey this, but I think something that came up like in one of our faculty meetings. By the way, I'm also at UNC Charlotte with José and Kati and Claire. I don't necessarily know the students, but hi. Is that right now we're in this situation where we're not really teaching online courses. We're teaching these kind of weird hybrids that started out as normal classes, and then we all of a sudden had to like scramble and do something different. And I know for me it took, I would say, about 2 weeks to figure out how to really, and I've been doing, I think this is similar to what Ajay was saying, that having like a group meeting and then having one-on-one meet, like I do a group meeting usually on Monday, and then one-on-one desk crits Wednesday and Friday. And then I have a folder where students can upload things so that I can give kind of quick feedback, on stuff during the course of the week. And initially started out with a lot more like, oh, the whole class together, and that realized that that was just not being effective. And I think that real online teaching has to be formatted differently. It's a different venue, and it usually includes a sort of combination of synchronous and asynchronous teaching. And I hope that and I think one of the things that's really important, I think for students to understand, is that like what we're doing right now isn't really true online teaching, but I think it's important for faculty to understand that like this kind of hybrid model, if we really have to go online, we're going to have to rethink how we structure our courses to some degree to fit the online structure better. And I don't know how to get that word out, but I think it's important because it was something I certainly didn't realize until it started to happen, and then somebody actually articulated that. It was like, oh yeah, no kidding. Because I know people who teach online and they do a ton, especially for studios. Online teaching requires a huge amount of pre-semester preparation, which like we're used to doing for seminars and things like that. But studios can often be a little bit looser, and you kind of have to go with the flow. And so I think it's going to require some structural rethinking. So I hope that doesn't, scare people away. I don't know. I mean, but I can understand why it would.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that, Nadia. On that same thread, I saw that someone posted a conversation or a question about, what is the future of not just architecture, but architectural education? How can we kind of, I believe the word was rebrand, what does it look like? And I think where you're approaching it from and where UNCC is approaching it from is definitely a step in the right direction, because as you said, online courses, you generally just upload a paper or something, right? And then you're done. How do you upload a studio project? And you can't build a physical model in the same sense and have it graded digitally. So there's a lot of crazy, just completely altering practices, I guess, that we're going to have to go through here in the next bit of time. So I saw that Sarah Takatatsu had something to say.
Thank you. Yeah, so as a current member on the AIS Health and Wellness Committee, very interested to hear if the current students had any tangible examples of positive experiences of instructors or peers really exemplifying or inspiring health and well-being in their classes. I think that we've done a really great job of identifying some major concerns as we're experiencing this, but I'm really interested to see if there's been any positive experiences and any good examples that we can really lean into and create more of those experiences.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I see some people that are commenting in the chat. If they want to speak up, I think, Himesh, do you want to go ahead and say something on that?
Yes, I would love to. Sorry I'm late, by the way. I was in a 5-hour quarter review, which was fun. So my response to that is, with my professors, they've been honestly nice for the most part, and I've been talking to a lot of other students, and professors have actually been mostly very accommodating towards it and such, but there's still the issue of one, like financial side with accessibility, whether it's to like computers and such, and some departments spend way too much time to get back or to send the equipment to the person. There's issues with software being able to access them. Not everyone is able to. A lot of students are used to, which we don't consider working at school most of the time. So there's two reasons. One, because financially they can't afford like the proper computer or programs, or two, their home conditions aren't that great. And that can mean a wide range of things where they just don't feel comfortable and it's not the best mindset. So one of the things I just wanted to discuss is just building a support system within AAS. We've like emailed our general membership and we've tried to build like a tight network. If someone needs like help or they need a, like someone to chat with to feel safe, then they have that. But something I want to bring up is, what do you kind of do if you're working in an environment where you perhaps like don't feel unsafe, but you can't leave home? So like, what do you do in that instance?
That's a great point. That's a great question to follow up with that. And you know, on that same line, that kind of, how do I phrase this? I think it was a question that was asked earlier, but do you all as students feel safe going to school, if not, like not now, but in the fall? And it, depending on what your university has thought about, and has your university thought about anything for you, that sort of thing. So definitely something to ask about. I think a great way to go through this is like thinking about, for those of you that are students that are here, taking a lot of these things and approaching your dean or your chair of your program and saying, hey, you know, I understand that you all are facing a lot of concerns, but just so you know, the students are also having those same concerns and we'd love to work it out together. That is the big process that we always talk about in AIS when we're talking about developing a studio culture policy or a learning and teaching culture policy at your university. It has to be from buy-in from everyone, right? It's not just the students demanding stuff. It's not just the faculty expecting students to do certain things. It's about a communication, a dialogue, right? Much like a discussion that we're having right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and call on Noor. I saw her hand up her hand was up again.
On communication, I think something that's been really helpful is schools that are really making an effort to still, even if it's virtual, still kind of keep that sense of community in a school going. Like at City College, they're holding weekly town hall meetings. So they're still getting students together and faculty and administration so students can voice any concerns they're having. And that way it's like, you know, we're having a discussion, we're hearing your concerns, we're here, and then they're able to better respond to student needs that way too. And they've been doing things like setting up emergency grant applications and things like that. So doing whatever they can to make sure that students, you know, their needs are being heard. And AAS and NOMA's chapters are also stepping up a lot in schools in this scenario, which is helping a lot. Like they're doing things like skill workshops or just doing whatever they can to kind of keep community going, holding virtual gatherings and things like that. So there's different ways that you can still kind of keep that going.
Cool, thanks, Noor. I'm actually gonna call on someone whose hand isn't raised and he doesn't know this yet, but I saw that Jati posted something in the chat and I think this is super relevant to what we're talking about right now. Jati, do you wanna go ahead and elaborate a little bit?
All right. Yeah, I don't want to put my school on blast, but nah, there's some like really, sorry, I'm gonna go switch. But so as a student in Nebraska, there's a lot of times, there are a lot of situations that we have to like promote the sense of niceness and community. And I think that a lot of times, although our faculties and our administration has good intentions, it might be missed because there's a lot of behind the scenes that we don't really discuss in an open platform on public. A lot of times it's because they feel intimidated because they don't really have the sort of platform to speak with authority, or let alone some agency as that's respected. But at the same time, I think it's just like the vibe, honestly, to be quite frank, like who wants to do that? But I think there was a situation today where like my school puts out a video like Nebraska Strong, or I can't remember what it is, but I see our chapter presidents on here as well, our AIS chapter presidents here on as well, and he can probably sort of validate that point in which there's more of gaslighting. And I think that that's a perpetual problem with schools, is that they just gaslight, everything's cool, everything's fine. But like, if you want to be real, you should probably ask the students who typically don't make it to like the height of their promotional aspects, right? Like students who don't come up on the front page of your website. Ask students who are like probably struggling a bit, like probably took 1 year around the lap. Like straight up, you can ask me. I took 6 years from undergrad, but like here I am finishing up my thesis defense in 2 weeks. But there's some real stuff that you should probably, as faculties, if I'm talking to you, like you should probably listen to the B or even C level students, because I guarantee you there's some real stuff happening. And if you want to keep us in your pockets to secure the bag, so to speak, right, you should really like be more, as Issa Rae would say in Insecure, on point with that kind of stuff.
Thanks, Joshy. Didn't mean to put you on blast there, but no, I appreciate you speaking up. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we hear a lot about in the AIS, and it's unfortunate, but we talk about being inclusive, right, and inclusivity and equity, and it's hard for us to kind of say what exactly that is. But I think Jati hit the nail on the head there, right? Like, talk to those B and C students who may not be doing well for whatever reason, right? Grades aren't exactly the driving factor in school. And I hope you all know that like your grade on a test does not determine your worth or your value. So yeah, just remember that, and don't be afraid to remind your professors that, because they're very much in the education realm, and the professors on here might differ with me, but I don't know. I'm not a professor yet. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call in Shannon next. We haven't heard from her yet.
Alrighty, just trying to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My name's Shannon DeFranza. I'm a student at Roger Williams University, but currently I'm living at home on Long Island, New York. One thing that I wanted to talk about was kind of the lack of standardization of how professors have responded to students. I've had quite the extreme range of responses from my professors. One sending out an extreme amount of work to compensate, he said, for not being together. One sending out a poll. She was really great. She sent out a poll asking what we had, what we needed, and tailored her teaching to our responses, and also takes half an hour to check in with every single student, going down a list at the beginning of every class. It's really great to see some teachers responding like that. But I've also had a studio professor asking for physical models still, when I have no supplies or materials. Everything's still at school because I couldn't go back. And then in regards to some of the questions about mental health, I think a lot of students are struggling, especially out-of-state students, because I got a call from my school's counseling center saying we could no longer provide service to you because our licenses do not extend to, can you still hear me? It says, okay, it says our licenses cannot extend to New York State, so I no longer can use the counseling services at my own school. And that's very unfortunate, because I know myself, like many other students, rely on that for free counseling and stuff like that. And it's definitely impacted me in my ability to learn. I I'm not ashamed to say that today I had to email my professor saying I've gotten to a place where I just need a few extra days away from studio to like work on my mental health. And I was so terrified to send that email. And I know I shouldn't be, because professors, we've been told by the universities, they're going to be understanding. They're going to understand what you're going through. But I really don't know that. And nothing that I've seen has convinced me otherwise until I sent that email and got a response back saying, yes, of course, don't worry about it. Take time for you, which was encouraging to see. However, I didn't know that that would be the response, and I was terrified of what it would be. So I don't really know where to go from here, how counseling centers can maybe connect us with schools that are in our own state, start partnerships or something. But I don't know. I feel like the mental health resources that we usually have at our schools are kind of suffering for students right now. That's all. Thanks for listening, everyone.
You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing, Shannon. That's definitely an inspiring story. And it's what we need to hear. You know, it's definitely the fear that everyone is facing, whether they realize it or not. So let's see. I'm going to call on Rachel really fast, and then I'm going to have to ask some of our NOMAS reps to also raise their hands and give us some more information as well. I'd love to hear from you guys. Rachel?
Cool. I'm glad you called on me, because it was actually to segue off of what Shannon was talking about. I kind of, not going to rant, but kind of same boat as Shannon. Like, I was struggling really hard with transitioning, and I'm sure most of us hate admitting that. And I was having a really, I emailed my professors kind of like the week, because we transitioned during spring break, so that was unideal as things can get in this situation. But after our first week back, I emailed one of my professors, being very honest, being very transparent, very vulnerable in my email to him. And his response was, and it was a professor that I've never had issues with. It's a humanities, so it's not even architecture related, which I'm aware that those classes still matter, but just it was kind of a side class, but I still did everything. And he was just like, well, you've always been really good in my class, so I would have hated to fail you just because you weren't keeping up to date with everything. And I don't know if it was just me overreacting, but that was the last thing I wanted to hear in this situation. And it did kind of the opposite. Sorry, I see Jati freaking out. So it's just it did the complete opposite of motivate me. And it was up until yesterday. So this is about a 4-week process that I had to go through the Center of Disability Resources on campus to get an accommodation letter for him to even kind of give me the time of day. And it was just really discouraging, because it's right when I had that letter, and then I emailed him, he's just oh, well, I didn't realize it was that bad, stuff like that. So he was very 180, and I guess thankfully he came around, but it was just I already had in my files with the school anxiety and things on my record that would allow me to even get a letter, but just not everyone has that ability and that right and the access to an accommodation letter through kind of what I would say is one of the most important offices on campus. But I don't know, it was just extremely frustrating, and I'm sure a lot of us have vented to our friends about a lot of stuff going on right now, but it was just kind of really discouraging that through all of this, it wasn't as kind of not everyone is as understanding and kind of accommodating as I think that they should be. So I don't know if anyone else is having problems, but just kudos to Shannon for doing all that and sharing it with everyone.
Yeah, and thank you for also sharing. Really fast, I see that José has to go. It's his 21st anniversary. Wow.
Yeah, I'm thanking everyone already in the chat. This is, I wanted to be here. It got scheduled at a time that overlapped with some other family needs. As all of you are stressed and pulled between multiple responsibilities, I have a date with my wife downstairs, and if I plan to stay married for 21 more years, I probably should show up. But this has been hugely helpful in a lot of ways to me. I think Shannon's story, the stories we've heard both on the chat side and from other folks, it's good for me on the professional level to hear the community that we work with nationally, internationally. It's good for me personally because I know that I'm struggling with some of the same things. I didn't transition to this platform very easily, maybe with different challenges, but I don't think it's been fun for any of us to say it lightly. So it's helpful, and I would just say thanks again to ACSA, AIS, and NOMA. Let's keep these conversations going because you are the network that will keep pushing all of you through, right? This is the support network that we all need, that the extended community that we absolutely have to nurture right now. Thank you for everything. I apologize, I have to leave a little early. But I did post in the chat, I wanted to hear a little bit more from Nomas's perspective, particularly on these kinds of topics that Rachel and Shannon had raised, because I think that really gets to the heart of some of the things in Jati too, that we have to unpack. We can't live online in that same kind of old model. And it's not like we leave things behind when we go to the laptop. So thanks for sharing. Those are hard things to say, but we got to hear it. I really appreciate you being willing to share that stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. Thank you again for sharing. We'll see you later, and have a wonderful evening. Cool. Actually, before I hand it over to Kati, I was going to ask if Andrew had anything he wanted to add really fast from kind of the faculty perspective.
Yeah, from the faculty perspective, it's what I tell a lot of students. The bad news is faculty are people, and some people are idiots. So on behalf of the idiots, Shannon, I'm sorry. It's sad, and you still have to find that person who has some balance and sees the big picture. My line always is, this is only school, and to faculty, my comment to them always is, no one cares what you know if they don't know that you care. And on behalf of the idiots, I'm sorry. Some people don't get the big picture, and they think the most important thing right now is some deadline and some well, I guess I'm old, I say axonometric drawing, some rendering that you do in Enscape. And right now it's your health, it's your mental health, it's making sure you can make it to the next day. Everything's changing, everything's gonna change a little bit more, but hopefully as architecture moves forward and education moves forward, we can hold on to some of the few little good things that are happening out of this pressure. The diamonds will be that some students are saying studio is a lot more efficient because I don't got to sit for 4 hours for my 15-minute crit. So there'll be a few good things that come out of this. And I think we just have to keep looking at the, down the road and not some of the mess that's behind us. Okay. I said to Shannon, I know Jose, I know some other people online, email some of the other faculty, and, if you just want someone to vent to, because we're still here. Or me. Email me too.
Thanks, Andrew. No, I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's definitely heartening to hear that faculty are people. You heard the rest of what he said. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask Kati to go ahead and share her perspective.
Something that I wanted to share that has personally affected me too is just the economic side of it. And I know with just the thinking of if fall will be an online semester, there's so many fees, I guess, that we pay, and not just for the School of Architecture, but also just the university itself, which again, I don't know how much power we may have with that, but a lot of people have been saying, how worth it is, just in, I guess, dollar signs for us to be online, because I mean, we design, but we make, and the making part of it is really important. So not having access to, our labs, our computers, just all the resources that are online, then, so speaking about what Noor said before, how people are choosing if they're going to go back, if they're going to have those resources, and at the same time, they're going to be asked to pay the same price for staying at home. So I know, our school has given some money back or like refunded some money. So like for parking, which is outside of the architecture school, but that helps because we're not there. But you know, what about all the other stuff that goes in tuition? And of course, we're not asking to just not pay tuition at all. But a discount, is that even possible? Because just being back at home, and if people like, I don't know, if our mothers, fathers aren't able to work because maybe they work in the restaurant industry, and those are completely closed for the majority of it. And at the same time, you're paying, you know, thousands of money for school, and you're still staying at home. Then that may play a big role in if people are wanting to go back. Maybe not just, you know, I don't get the full experience, but also I just can't afford to be there.
Thanks, Kati. Yeah, that's definitely something that I know is on the top of a lot of people's minds. I've heard a lot of those similar conversations within AIS as well, just about what is the value of, especially thinking about summer courses, right? Summer courses are generally more expensive in general, but now that they're all online, or for a majority of people, they'll all be online. So it's like, why are we still paying the same amount if we're not getting the same experience out of it? So that's definitely a big question. And it actually leads me to kind of my next question, and kind of like how I'd like to pivot the last part of this conversation. What are some of y'all who are graduating this year, what are you thinking about doing next, right? Like, has this affected your thoughts about going to grad school, or changing institutions, or maybe going to study closer to wherever your home is? But also, what have you been thinking about as far as jobs go? We've had a lot of conversations with AIA recently, just at kind of what the job market's like, and how people are reacting to it. And a lot of people are having a similar reaction, or they're treating it very similarly to how this happened back in 2008. Obviously, the economic crisis back then was very different, and many of us were in middle school. So we didn't really understand the effects of it. And so it's really interesting to see how the profession and how education is shifting with that. So yeah, what are your thoughts for moving ahead, moving forward? Because at the end of the day, we have to move forward. So I saw Kyra. You want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, our rural studio projects were canceled, which means I thought I was going to be looking for a job in a year instead of in a month. So I had like a lot of ideas of like, oh, I want to move to a big city and have like this fancy boutique architecture job. But after everything that's happened, like I'm realizing that like I want a job that's more fulfilling. I want to move to a city where I can become a part of the community. Like if they don't need me at Rural Studio, then I want to go to a city that does need me. So I think it's really important that we're thinking like, obviously we're the people who care. We took the time to be on this call. Like, how can we choose a firm or a career path? Maybe it's working for a city and not an architecture firm. Like, how can we make sure that what we're doing has value, and can like impact things to make them better? I know it's really switched my perspective and what I want to do and how I want to work with people.
Thanks for sharing, Kyra. Ricardo, did you want to say something? I saw your hand went down.
Yeah, I definitely felt, I did kind of want to say something. I definitely feel like the economic part is something I could speak to. I'm also graduating this semester as well. It's interesting. I had a internship that I've been working at all semester that also kind of helped me get throughout school, and that I was supposed to get a full-time offer when I graduated. Since this all kind of happened, they basically told me I should file for unemployment. I was supposed to have another interview for another firm, didn't work out. I was also selected for the NOMA Foundation Fellows. Like I was a finalist there, so I was supposed to be having interviews with our roundtable for, you know, this potential 12-week summer program, and that is just indefinitely on hold as well. So there's definitely, you know, there's some of the, Andrew spoke before about some of the anxieties of students, but for all the students as well, there's kind of like that transition that we're really nervous about. It's like, well, I don't know. I thought I knew what my life was going to look like in 2 or 3 months and a year, but now I'm not really sure. So it's interesting. I actually think some students may actually consider going to grad school just to kind of wait out for this economic turnaround to come back around. Some may try and stick it out and just get jobs in the meantime. It definitely seems like a lot of places aren't really hiring. So I don't know. I mean, there's different places offering different services. NOMA's doing the best they can, trying to offer support and connections, whether it be through like a professional network or just highlighting different services that you can use in the meantime to kind of boost your repertoire, whether you learn new skills for when jobs do open up. It's kind of adapting, but for graduating students, it's kind of scary at the same time because it's like, what are you going to do in this meantime? We're not really sure when this is going to end. So, I mean, a month or two post-grad may not be that bad, but if it's, all the way till 2021, you got some things to figure out,
Yeah, that it's definitely crazy to think about. But yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And on that same note, we're talking about resources and sharing, and I know everyone's been sharing really amazing things, and in the chat as well. I think it's really on a more positive note, right? Like there's a lot of negative stuff going around, but I will say that one thing that I've seen and that's made me truly inspired is how people are helping people, and they genuinely mean it now. We're genuinely talking about mental health. This, 3 months ago, this conversation would have been drastically different, right? The conversations we've been having have been going on for decades, it seems. It's just a new group of people every time. So this is super inspiring to hear a lot of the positive things that are coming out of it as well. All right, Himesh, do you want to go ahead and share?
First, I'm really happy to see Ricardo and the connection between NOMAS and AAS bridging closer and closer. Second, I just wanted to say for everyone, I think it's important that we keep our departments accountable, just like we do the government. It's important that we speak up about these issues, whether it's yourself or others, to the department. If they're not listening, there's people above them. From experience, I've even went up to the president's level and emailed him. He emailed me actually back the next day. If it takes something, if it's that important, whether it's your mental health or financial constraints that you and your peers are having, please don't keep it to yourself. Something that we've done in the architecture community, whether it's professional or student level, is we create the stigma where we're not able to speak. A lot of us are introverts, and I blame honestly professors a lot because and departments a lot for not letting students speak out as much. But it's really important we stop that stigma. And if anything, this epidemic has made us rethink about what's really important and making sure whether it's financial constraints or other ones that we really need to take it more seriously. And sorry, I'm blowing off the lines, but I just really think it's important that we really speak up about it within our own schools. The other thing is that we also don't let this and I'm just speaking from my own thesis experience. Some of my classmates haven't been taking the work very seriously, and they've used it as an excuse, like this pandemic, to not do as much work and stuff. It's really important that we still stay resilient and educated. Our education is more important now than ever, whether it's climate change or it's the new design world that we're kind of entering. But it's really important that we're all leaders within this chat, is that we keep motivating each other, our teams, the next e-board, moving on to keep going and to keep fighting this good fight. For graduation, I'm graduating also. Noor and Shannon know this. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. It's a hot mess, a hot mess. But I'm still staying hopeful. I also applied for the NOMA fellowship, which I gladly received. They emailed me recently. And, but I realized I don't really am open to other fields, which is scary to think about. And I'm not really wanting to do architecture as much anymore. And I just applied the last 3 days to 40 jobs that I'm probably not qualified to apply for, but I still did. And I hope that somehow gives you guys inspiration to, even if it's a big goal, moving to the city. I grew up across the South. I didn't think I would make it to New York City in my wildest dreams, but I did. So just keep reaching for the stars, keep aspiring, keep being resilient.
Keep being resilient. Absolutely. And one thing, just to kind of tie a lot of these together, we've been talking a lot about soft skills and design skills and things we're actually learning. And I think this it really echoes onto what Amy said as we start to think about moving forward, right? She's a recent grad herself, Amy Rosen, our wonderful past president in the AIS. She's encouraging people to think about soft skills, right? And other skills in design thinking, expertise that you've gained in school, because that is incredibly valuable, right? We always talk about how anyone who with an architecture degree can really pivot to something different if their path so says so, right? So, or they want to. The value of an architectural education is just, it's hard to put words to it. Hence why I'm hard having words. So yeah, no, this is super great. I see that Kati, you want to go ahead and add something to this?
Yeah, and actually, I mean, it's perfect. I was going off of Amy's comment too. I was going to say, so I worked since last year, it's going to be a year already, with a construction company. And I don't know if you've been aware, but construction has not really been affected. It's been said that it's an essential job. So I've been lucky to keep my job, and everything that I do is through the computer, because I do estimating and the models of the buildings that we're going to do. So you know, it's definitely applying architecture skills and of course modeling to something else. But something that I just recently probably start thinking about is that also with the business that I used to work before, which is a restaurant. It's a local restaurant here in Asheville, North Carolina. They closed because they're not able to do the to-go and pick-up orders. But I have also been thinking about, you know, we have so many design skills that I'm going to think about, well, I'm not going to think. I know I'm going to help them with like designing a campaign for them to reopen. And this could work perfectly for them, but then maybe for other people who are needing maybe like a word to get out there that, you know, we're still alive. So right now, I mean, working in architecture, an architecture firm has definitely been pushed to the side for a little bit because I think there's probably more need in other areas right now. So thinking about, you know, applying my skills to something else for sure, and putting a hold in the architecture world is, it was scary at first because it's not something that I envisioned, but it's good to be open to other opportunities for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And for everyone who hasn't been keeping an eye on the chat, Kyra just shared something along the same lines about state tracking where construction is considered essential. Oh man. All right. Wow. Well, this has been great. Looking at the time, we only have a few minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and ask to see if Andrew, Kyra, Noor, Ricardo, Kati, if y'all want to say some closing thoughts to wrap everything up this evening.
Just quick comment. Hey guys, just, you have faculty, don't let the 1%, you know, get you thinking everything is dark and dismal. Faculty want to hear what you have to say. They care. They're there to listen. And you can email them, you can text them, you can call them, and the same faculty you turned to before, the faculty and administrators you can turn to now. They have kids that look just like you, or they have younger brothers and sisters. And they're going to hear, and they know what's going on. Okay, so don't let the 1 or 2 eggheads kind of let you think that no one is listening. We're listening, so just talk, please.
Yeah, I think 2 things that are really key are transparency and empathy. So students and universities being transparent, open about things like budgets, mental health, that kind of stuff. And then also empathy and remembering that, yeah, faculty have kids, students are going through a lot of stuff, and just being empathetic, good people to each other will make this a lot better.
+1 to empathy for professors and for students. Also just a reminder to everyone that it's okay if this isn't, you know, the best semester you've had, you know, to just recognize that we are going through a crisis and things aren't going to be normal for a while, and that's okay. I mean, we have to also just focus on health and safety, and that does need to come first, and we can't, regardless of the reactions that we're getting, we just have to also advocate for ourselves in that regard.
I definitely agree. Empathy and clarity. These conversations with each other remind us that, you know, we're all human, and that even though we have our own circumstances, that we do share some problems. We share certain conditions, certain experiences, and that can only that transparency can only, you know, help us realize what really needs to be done. And I see a comment here too saying that these type of talks should be happening with schools and their community, and I highly agree with that. You know, for the students in here, for the faculty in here, I'm not exactly sure what every school is doing, but I think it's important that we have these dialogues. People at this point, you don't have an excuse not to read your email to say, or just swipe something under the rug. Like, culture is completely changing right now, whether we like it or not. And this can be a point for us leaders to kind of leverage these changes that we need to address, you know, mental health, to address the changes, to address that people have different environments, we have to be accommodating to them. So, you know, let's be transparent and help each other, but let's also, you know, take a step to try and make sure we're receiving the culture that we deserve.
Yeah, just one last thing I wanted to add. I think sometimes this can also be seen as a forced vacation for many, staying at home. And I think there's also a lot of good that can come in taking a break from everything else that is sometimes going in the world. We're so busy going up and down the streets, you know, out and about. But sometimes it's good to, I've experienced it with my family, just stay in for a night and have some games. I think, you know, that connection that sometimes is lost because we're just spread out all over the place. Now that we're sort of forced to do it, I think we can really make some good out of it and appreciating what we have for now.
Wow. This has been a great call, everyone. Thank you so much for participating. Just a little bit of the logistical things. ACSA does record all of their webinars. Probably should have mentioned that at the beginning. But the staff over at ACSA will be putting this up on their website in the near future. So you all can share this with your faculty, share this with your peers. Let them know that we all have questions and we all want to find the answers. So the best way to do that is together. Like you said, many of you said, you know, this is a difficult time, and things are changing. And so we definitely need to make sure that we are changing things for the better. So on that note, everyone have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy yourself, stay safe. Don't stare at a computer screen all day like we've been doing. Let's take a break, read a book. All right, everyone, have a great night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks, everyone. Great job.
Hang in there.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ricardo, man.